So I want to welcome everyone to episode 15. I can't even believe that's true. But anyway, we are here with the Trust After Trauma podcast. I'm Janet Grace, your host. And today, I am so honored to be sharing a very, very special guest with us. But I want to tell you a little bit about Trust After Trauma and the purpose and the reason that we even got this launched 4 months ago. It really is conversations that matter, that really help people that are going through any form of trauma. And if you go through the library, you'll see that there's so many topics and titles that we have been blessed to get experts in the field that have moved the needle in their lives and then went ahead and helped hundreds and thousands of people move the needle in that particular area, whether they've lost their child or whether they've, divorced or been through an abusive situation. So trauma affects all of us, and it affects us all in so many different ways. So I'm again honored to be bringing to you episode number 15. And our topic today is revealing the missing piece, and it's PEACE. And we're going to be going on a journey of deeper trust. And my very special guest, Jane M. Powers, is just an expert in this area, in this field. And I'm so honored that she had time in her busy schedule to come join us and share her wisdom, her experience, and her heart. And I'm just going to give you a little bio on Jane. Speak with confidence and sell with authority. With decades of successful speaking, training, coaching, and real-life experience, founding and running 4 multi-million-dollar businesses, she really is a busy woman. Jane appreciates that success is truly about the power of your voice. She is widely recognized for her ability to navigate and heal the most challenging circumstances. Jane is an award-winning international speaker, trainer, and sought-after life and business strategist. Her dedication to guiding trauma survivors to emerge victorious over their past into an unstoppable future has deemed her the quintessential go-to expert. Jane is committed to creating deep and genuine healing to live an extraordinary life that matters, just as she has through the healing of her own abuse. She knows to reveal the missing piece, you must find your voice. In your voice is your power. Welcome, Jane M. Powers. She uses that word so many ways. It's so fabulous. I'm so excited about our conversation today. And thank you so much for finding time to share your brilliance, your wisdom, your energy, and your passion to really help people in so many different ways. And so put your voice in. And
wouldn't it be hilarious if I started talking and I was muted? I'd be like, oh my God, my whole philosophy has gone out the window.
I love that your wall is turquoise, because turquoise is the throat chakra.
Yeah.
As you know.
Yes.
So share a little bit about yourself and just even how you got really started on this journey of healing and speaking with confidence.
Yes. Well, let's just say it has been a number of years in the making. And truth be told, and people laugh when I tell them this, they're like, that is such a lie. I used to be a wallflower. I was quiet. I didn't express myself. Many of you can relate to this. You placate, you make sure everybody's happy, and then by the end of the day, you're saturated because you have not told your truth. You have not asked for your needs to be met. And you end up, you're like, oh my God, life is just a draining experience. So my journey started, my gosh, it was junior year in college when I put my fist through a dorm window. It was a wake-up call for me. And here's what's ironic about it. The wake-up call wasn't, I could have hurt myself. I didn't even think of that. What I thought was, I was on the 3rd floor. Window broke and went falling onto the sidewalk. I could have hurt someone. that was my wake up call. Not the care and concern for myself, but again, care and concern for others. I thought that so I actually, I grew up in a complicated family. The podcast is titled the title of my book. So I won't go into all the details. If you want to know the story of my journey, please, I'll give you a snapshot here, but Revealing the Missing Piece is actually my book. And the way it starts out is basically, I had a complicated family. My mother died of alcoholism when I was young. I thought that was my biggest issue. I was like, I'm grieving the rest of my life. Well, I went into therapy because I thought I was just angry that I had lost my mom. No, I was, but I didn't realize that that was probably the more tame thing that happened in my lifetime. So when I started in therapy after that, I was in a domestic violent relationship, and I was being tossed around and thought, well, hey, this is as good as it gets. It's better than what I was going through, all the sexual abuse. So it seemed tame. So I ended up going into counseling, and oh, the memories. And a lot of people don't have memories of their abuse. I happen to have a made for lifetime movie of my past. And and I truly believe, and I tell people, if you don't have memories, that's okay. If you know something has happened, get to deal with it. I happen to see what happened and I get to deal with it. But Janet Grace, I tell you, the only reason I think I have all the memories is I'm talking about trust. I don't trust. I didn't trust my memories. I didn't trust my own sanity at the time. So I thought it can't be true. So don't doubt, like gaslighting is the number one factor in survivorship. Like crazy making, that's what we used to call it. We didn't know gaslighting back then. We're like, my dad, he was my main abuser. You know what my dad said to me one time? Oh, he trained me to believe I had the best imagination on planet Earth. The best imagination. So anytime I would come up with something, I'd be like, there's that imagination. So being gaslighted, crazy making, manipulated, taught to question yourself is, I believe, the number one issue around trust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Number one issue.
Well, and what you're talking about too is that, you were trained to be a people pleaser. You were trained to to put everyone else's needs in front of your own. So, eh, how to even build that muscle of trusting yourself, like finding like a place to go, I matter,
Yeah.
because my work is all about self-love. And it's if we don't take responsibility for our own life and our own happiness and our own joy and our own journey. But in this experience or in this awakening of your memory coming back, how did you navigate through that to even move in the direction of now trusting, not that you have the best imagination in the world, but that your imagination, that what you were thinking was actually true? And how did you move through that?
Yeah, well, a lot of kicking and screaming and clawing. And, in my book, the reason I wrote my book is I spent probably 40 years deep diving into one aspect or another. I'm obsessed with personal growth and awareness. I must be aware of my movements, behaviors, actions, motivations, intentions. And I believe everybody does. I believe everybody must be profoundly aware. And so as I went through it, I just kept talk therapy, Reiki therapy, past life regression, you name it. I did every form of therapy to put Humpty Dumpty back together again because I had so many different personality traits that when one would be triggered, the whole system wouldn't trust. So I worked very, very long and hard to understand, and I was just saying this morning. I spent so many years not understanding how the mind works, how the subconscious mind works, and how when I would go into therapy, we would do inner child work. You know,
Mhm.
I relished, I loved doing inner child work. I would literally go into a session, whatever little one would be triggered, I'd spend that time sharing the story from the perspective of that little one. And now I'm so much older and wiser. Maybe older is the only factor, but I realized that the longer I stayed in the story, the longer I stayed in the story. I realized that as I continued to tell my story, it reinforced the pattern and the programming that came from that trigger. So instead of spending all this time, and I tell people every day, my past was a gross inconvenience. It was it was just a pain in the patootie. Like honestly.
Yeah.
But back in the time when I was dealing with it, I'm not kidding you. It felt like gut-wrenching I mean, it felt like I was living it again. Well, good news is we won't live it again unless we don't clear up the patterns. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, Janet Grace, as I was going through my healing and I was
Mhm.
telling my sexual abuse stories. I had somebody break in with intent to rape. Thank goodness there was a couple of us there, two of us there. I was exposed to, gosh, probably 3 or 4 times, all in that same time frame. And I was starting to study the mind, and I'm like, I know where my focus is, and I'm attracting to me exactly where my focus is.
Right.
And so, as I went through my growth and process, here's what I'll tell you. I didn't have a voice. I didn't have a voice. I just was going into therapy, blah, data dumping everything, coming out and letting the world ping pong me around because I didn't take back my power.
Mhm.
Now we know this about me. No filter. I see it, I hear it, I feel it, I think it comes out skillfully.
Yeah.
But here's, moving to trust, and getting to the healing part. I thought the best form of truly taking back my power was to confront the abusers. And so I started doing that. I got death threats. I had to hide out from my family. It was tragic. So I don't say everybody should go and confront. I just happened to. I knew if I was going to stand in my power, I
Mhm.
was going to have to truly speak up. And actually, the way that I got outed, I was on the Oprah Winfrey show. I wasn't really thinking like, hmm, her show goes to gazillions of people and I'm on camera. And my
Mhm.
family then went, she's still in the area because they were be very, very quiet. It's Jane season. Like they wanted me. And
Mhm.
I thought, you know what? I am not running anymore. I turned and faced them and I confronted. And I'll tell you, that was probably the most powerful part of my healing with my father, because for about the remainder of his lifetime after I confronted him for about 20 years, I'd pick up the phone, I'd call him and I go, "You SOB, here's what you did, here's the result. How dare you?" And he'd say, "I hear you and I'm sorry." That was probably the greatest healing. He admitted and then didn't admit, but
Right.
here's what I would say, because this whole podcast is, well, this is on trust. And you hit the nail on the head. I, can we trust everybody? Sure. I can trust certain people are going to be late. I can trust certain people are going to be early and I'm not going to be ready. I can trust as much as the person I love doesn't want to hurt me. I trust they will. Just by accident. I trust that I'm accidentally going to hurt someone's feelings. So trust isn't about, I want to trust you 100%, Janet Grace. I want to trust my partner 100%. I want to trust my spouse, my parent, whatever it is. The only one you could trust 100%, and that's not even guaranteed, is yourself, because we are many times unskillful
Mhm.
at, you know, the dumbest thing I did? I think it might be the dumbest thing in my life. I joined the HOA board up here. But you know what I failed? I failed to trust myself when my inside was going, oh, do not do that. Do not do that. And I did. But I breached the trust of myself. So
Mhm.
trust comes in so many degrees. I mean,
So
there are
many.
people I wouldn't trust for nothing.
Yeah.
And then it's a matter of degrees and what area. What area can I trust that person?
Right. And I'm so glad that you brought up so many different multi dimensions and different forms of trust. And when we first created this podcast, Trust After Trauma, it's I because I've been a life coach as long as you have, and mine is all about focusing on yourself as a spiritual being having a human experience. It's more about trusting yourself and trust yourself as God trusts you. Like there's a whole other dimension. And even as you're sharing your journey and you're sharing the different aspects of even trust in the way that you trusted yourself to make that phone call, calling, I'm dad, this is what you did, and building that muscle, that trust muscle. And also, when you are really connected to and listening to that still small voice and trusting the wisdom of your own self in your own heart, that voice that has the power to take you in the direction that really moves the needle in the right direction in your
Yeah.
life. If you had listened to that, you wouldn't be on that HOA board, right? And so even as we're and trusting again, even though it might have been clunky, and really the hardest way for you to out yourself on the Oprah Winfrey show, which I recommend to every single person that's listening to this, get her book, Revealing the Missing Piece. You will be entertained. You will be get your Kleenex box nearby. I mean, it's just so brilliant, as you are so brilliant
Thank you.
about,
Thanks.
sharing and sharing your story and being such a brilliant storyteller with purpose. And how you inspire and empower others, empower us to speak up, to use our voice, and to listen for the ways that feel right and true for us. And how take the reader through this incredible journey is just brilliant, as you are. And
Thank you.
so in your journey and your experience and where you are today and how you have continued to build your own trust muscle uh, after trauma. And again, I always say, if we've every single 8 billion of us on the planet Earth have now been through, this COVID experiment.
Right.
We've all been through trauma of some sort, right? And there's people that are even, my next guest, we're going to talking about, isolation and how it's just like literally paralyzed humanity.
Yep.
And there's people that are still like wearing a mask and afraid to go to a public place. And, we're 5 years in or 5 years out. So how is it that you've continued to build your trust muscle? And are there some tools and some tips and some things that you want to share with our audience today that will move them in a new way through an experience that, again, none of us have had the same experiences, but maybe an experience of abuse and doing work with the inner child, but the tools and tips that you might want to share with us that, again, have helped you through your journey of revealing the missing piece.
Yeah. It's interesting because as you say that, I have so many thoughts of, we get through these times that, we had COVID. Then I remember when COVID hit and they were like, you have to stay home. You can't do anything. Oh, I was furious.
Mhm.
It triggered my powerlessness, hopelessness. And I wrote the book for survivors of sexual abuse, and the majority of feedback I get are from people that had an alcoholic parent, went through a bad divorce, had and it's interesting, and I know this and we know this, but you always feel like, somebody who was an addict, that's a trauma. I mean, your emotional growth, my background in drug and alcohol treatment centers working, the emotional growth stops at that point. So trauma is trauma. Like, some people, and this is a weird dynamic I see, it's survivor paranoia, where it's like, oh, you think your abuse was bad, listen to mine. Yeah, it's always one upping, and somebody's got to be in more pain than the other. And what I believe, that's just a cry for help and healing. That's cry for attention, cry for love. And so here's what I would say. Number one, the first tip I have is whatever crap you've been through, admit it. It was crap. It was not a good experience. I don't care if you moved 20 times when you were a kid. That is traumatic. If you were abused to whatever degree, that also, there's a spectrum. And I believe that we are called into this lifetime to what's the saying, Janet Grace, you know it, the greatest souls accept the greatest challenges.
Oh
Or
yeah. Yeah. Something
I
like,
butcher every quote,
yeah.
except my own, and I make them up on the fly.
You
But
signed on the dotted line. This is the contract. You came in to experience these
yes,
things as a soul.
right. And so here, here we are. It doesn't matter. And it's a barometer of, you'll see some people, like I went through surgery not too long ago, and my wife just went through surgery. And I look at her and I'm like, what did they amputate? Like this sounds like such a bad experience. And I just happened, that's how I work through things like a warrior.
Mhm.
So the first thing I would say, validate that you have a degree of trauma. I don't care if it's just COVID. Validate, yes, that was crap. The
Mhm.
second thing is know your truth, like knowing who you are. If
Mhm.
you ask me a question, I can answer my desire in about a nanosecond. Most people go, well, I don't know, what would you think would be a great place to go eat? Well, I didn't ask you that. I asked you what you wanted. So practice. Practice on the easy things, not when you get in a big fight with your spouse and you're like, I feel, and then you can't get it out because you're not well practiced. So go into situations knowing that it's going to may take you about 10 seconds to decide. So if Janet, Grace, and I get together and she goes, hey, let's go out and we're going to get sushi. Well, I'm going to answer no right away. Like, that's just plain and simple. I know thyself, no
Mhm.
sushi. But if she said, well, do you want to go for sushi or pizza? I'm going to go, I would love pizza. Now, let's say you like both of them. And Janet Grace loves sushi, right? And you're like, I could do sushi. And inside you're like, man, I'd love a pie. Like, I just love me a deep dish pizza. I don't want sushi. But you go along with it just because that's the best thing to do. It makes Janet Grace happy and it satisfies. So I am really, really big on stating your truth, stating your desires. What did we learn? Tell your truth and tell your truth quickly. And I'll tell you, if you stay in the I voice and use some terms, here's some great languaging. I have been training communication for eons. And back in the day, I did a lot of communication training, and I would teach people, let me help you understand something about me. So let me, it's my gift to you, understand why I'm going to eventually say no to you, but let me help you understand me better. I'm not a big fan of sushi, but I do love me some pizza. I would love to go to pizza. The other statement is help me to learn more about you around dinner, around our relationship, around whatever. So let me help you understand me better. Let me learn about you, or let me teach you something about me. Let me teach you something about me. I am not eating any fish raw. So, so let me
Yep.
teach you, or I could say to Janet Grace, teach me something about you in your purpose of doing the podcast.
Yeah.
Now I'm understanding her better and I can reflect. So, what I hear, remember the good old fashioned counseling days? You go in and go, I am angry. And then the counselor goes, what I hear you saying is, you are angry. It is as corny as can be, but it works.
Yeah.
So, trust doesn't come from, Janet Grace, you behave a certain way so that I know I'm safe with you. That's not trust. That's called manipulation.
Right.
That's called you behave and then you get rewarded by me liking you or trusting you or loving you or whatever it is. The truth is it's about clear communication and self-awareness. Early on what I used to do is I would say to myself, or I guess it would be self, I would say, listen, I may not be paying much attention, and I just say yes or I say no. Or what I would love is for you to cause a twitch in my eye or a tingle in my cheek so that I hear you. Instead of getting a sledgehammer, just give me a little twitch. And I'm not kidding you. I'd get into situations, I'd be like, oh God, oh no, my eye would be twitching. I'd be go, okay, all right, I'm listening, I'm listening. And then I would reflect on what it is I choose. Here's the beauty. And this isn't a social sexism thing where like, oh, it's the women's prerogative to change their mind. That's BS. It's everybody's prerogative to change their mind. So let's say Janet Grace goes, do you want to go out for sushi? And I go, yeah. And inside I go, oh, I will starve to death. And then I go, you know what, Janet Grace, I spoke too soon. I'm not feeling that. What else can we negotiate to do? And I know sounds really minimal, but I guarantee 70%, unfortunately, of women are out there saying yes to sushi. And they don't even freaking like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of just owning your power. And here's what I'll tell you. Here's my warning. Let's put a warning label on this podcast. Here's my warning. When you start speaking up, people won't like it. They do not want to know your truth. Why? They want their truth to be honored. They only, I mean, I'm not saying they're selfish, it's human nature,
Yeah.
especially when we're in crisis. When we get into COVID, when we get into an election season that doesn't feel empowering to us, everyone, and I promise you, I cannot find one person that isn't, everyone becomes a narcissist because
Mhm.
we are wired to survive. So, as we're going through this world, the first thing, and I do it, I still do it to this day, I protect the perimeter. What that means is I have not a wall so people can't get in, but when you go to a concert, if you don't have a ticket, you can't get in. So the ticket is based on my self awareness of your actions, behaviors, requests, treatment. And it's really about I have a gate of entry. And here's my warning label. You'll get pretty lonely. We talk, listen to our next podcast. It's on isolation. But truth is that we get a lower tolerance for shenanigans by others. And a lot, if you look around, what I used to always do this, I'd be like, who are my drainers and who are my gainers? Who's draining me? And I'm saying yes to, and who am I gaining from? Because it just fills my soul and everything about me. So there's drainers and gainers in your life. You will lose a lot of drainers, but what they will do is amp up their game. If you're in a situation where, maybe you're being, gaslighted, or you're saying yes too many times, you got to really look at what part of you is allowing yourself to be compromised. Because I promise you, so most people that when I worked in the drug and alcohol treatment counseling world, most that were addicted had no voice. They weren't telling their truth. They were hiding from their truth. And I'll tell you, when I started remembering my abuse, and my abuse, I would love to say it was just like, oh, it was just this little occasional thing. No, I was the youngest of seven. I had a lot of aunts, a lot of uncles, a lot of grandparents, just, and looking at that was not fun, but I knew it was necessary, because if I kept hiding from that, I was not going to face who I could become. So when I started, oh my God, my very first speaking engagement, because remember, I didn't want to be in front of people. I didn't want to be noticed. I was the invisible kid. I could shrink into the wall and no one would notice me. And my very first speaking was on date rape, 200 juvenile delinquents. And I had to tell them, and I was scared to death. I was scared to death. So, the saying in AA, fake it till you make it. And I'm not an AA, or I've never been addicted, suicidal. I've never been hospitalized. I've never been on, meds of any sort. Because what I believe is I'm going to go through the hard times and become out a warrior. So a lot of people turn to chemicals. A lot of people turn to many things, food, sex. It's not a bad thing. But, you know, but to an extreme. So be aware of if you're not at homeostasis and the pressure on you feels really intense, you got to figure out you're not holding up your end of the bargain, because life is going to put pressure on you. And, homeostasis from, I ditched a lot of school, but I do remember that it would equal out. But if
Mhm.
you're caving to the world, you're going to feel suppressed because you are not expressing yourself. So, expression creates that strength to hold up against the rest of the world. But I'm telling you, eyes wide open, see beyond your world, look backwards. That's the biggest thing. Awareness. And I'm telling you, Janet Grace knows my son. I adopted him out of the projects. Janet Grace has been 21 years now. That boy is 31 years old. Yikes. It's it scares me. But I that kid is a mini me, even more expressive. And I look and go, you know what? That does me proud.
Yeah.
So I really just encourage people, find your voice. In your voice is your power. Go through the hard stuff. It isn't pretty, but it's not going to kill you unless you weaken to the pressure of it. That's it.
Right. I love that, Jane. And everything you're talking about, it's like find your voice, tell your truth, and own up to the things, validate what you have gone through. All of those are ingredients to trust yourself. And so I thank you from the bottom of my heart for, sharing your story, your wisdom, your knowledge, your expertise, and for everyone here, get her book, because I promise you, you will have a whole new lease on your own life because of her ability to communicate the truth and tell things in a way that inspires you to want to tell your own truth. And yeah, and any parting words, and how can we stay in touch with you?
Yeah, here's the silliest thing, and I know this sounds, I say validate, but it sounds discounting. Don't take it all so seriously.
Yeah.
Honestly, shit happens. Oh, we don't swear on podcasts. Sorry. It happens, and then you navigate your way through it, and trust yourself that you made it through the original sin. the memory of it's nothing. So don't get bogged down. Don't do 40 years of deep diving into your past because it's a waste of time. Look at it, gross inconvenience, and then find a solution. Retrain your brain. Oh, here's my parting tip, and I love this tip. Change the ending of the story. So I just was having a conversation about a memory of as a young girl, her father, the perpetrator, basically was communicating the threat of you do not say a word, you do not speak, you do not make a noise. And my advice was scream your head off. Change the story. Stand in that hallway and change the story. Therefore, when you change the story, the brain, I know it's brilliant, but it ain't so smart. The brain will be convinced that the story ended with you having a voice. Change your story. Therefore, you change your future. Never stay in the past. Say, oh, I am who I am. No, you're not. You are who you choose to be. Oh my God, here we go. Janet Grace is a whole new podcast. I'm a preaching now.
Just know that, there's just so many different things. And again, I know we're going to be co-creating some other things because my wheels of ideas are just spinning. And because we both have such a passion to help empower women, specifically who have gone through experiences and need the tools, need the confidence, need the courage, need to find their voice to be able to change the story, change the future. And, Grace's Place, which this is all brought to you, by Grace's Place Foundation. And our mission is to create a world for humanity free of abuse.
Yeah.
Create a future for humanity free of abuse, because our children and our grandchildren and our great grandchildren deserve a world free of abuse. We're humans, for goodness sakes. And we have to start acting like humans. And as we change the story from the past and be fully present in using our minds the way that we were meant to use our minds, which is creative and imaginative and intuitive and all the brilliant things, to be able to create a world free of abuse, because we deserve it, every single one of us. And as you're sharing your brilliance and saying, rewrite the story, rewrite the ending. And that's really what we're doing, even with Grace's Place. So I want to have you back again. And I know that there's so many things that that you're doing, and we'll put all the different ways that you can stay in touch with Jane M. Powers. After listening to her and falling in love with her on this podcast and wanting to know more about, what she's up to in the world. And, we're all in this together, and each voice matters. And so I'm just grateful that you shared your voice and your passion and your story. And I love you so much.
Love you too.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Have a beautiful, blessed day, and we will talk soon. Bye for now.